Hi guys, welcome back to Ixy Labs. I'm sitting here with Rich Mason, who is an activist and who was an integral part of People Power Brum and now works with the school's Consent Project. We will be discussing activism and how the people of the future will be getting involved in politics. How do we go from private citizen to being an engaged, politically conscious person making political decisions? Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and say a few words about this?
Yeah, sure. So, as you say, one of the last things I was involved with was People Power Brum. So this was a political campaign, a grassroots campaign, which we started in Birmingham, where I lived until recently. And so we were experimenting with some new ideas about democracy, radical new ideas for democracy, and how do we apply those in local government. I've moved down to London now, and one of the things I do is I work with the school's Consent Project. So we're a charity, and we aim to change the conversation around consent by taking workshops into secondary schools and starting the conversation in schools. And in my day job, I'm also a researcher, and I research the future of work, AI, robotics, and things like that.
I know that you're incredibly interested in technology and how it is affecting our political selves and decision making. I was wondering about this. When it comes to social media, there are two kind of dominating narratives, right? One says that, Instagram makes everybody so self-absorbed. We are becoming mindless selfie machines under constant peer pressure and reciprocating it. We are disengaged from our communities and other generations. Whereas on the other kind of side of the coin, you have the exact opposite of that says social media created a boom in political engagement, whether positively or negatively, from the Arab Spring to Occupy Wall Street.
Sure.
I mean, in terms of your field, which is grassroots organization of people into efficient groups, this must be a fantastic revolution to be observing.
It's a very interesting time, yeah, and nobody really has all the answers to this, and it's just moving very quickly, and people are just trying to make sense of it really as we go. I think the contrast which you've just drawn, there's an interesting one. I think the Instagram and selfies and all of this, social media is doing strange things to all of our psyches, and we don't really understand it completely, but I think the narrative that this is making us all sort of completely atomized and apathetic and apolitical is completely wrong. I think maybe one of the things which I see happening, in community groups and when we try and get stuff organized is that this alienating sensation which we quite often get on social media is actually causing a lot of people to crave doing something real, community-based, something tangible, something that feels more real.
And then they will find these groups because they are just at their avail online, if I'm correct, right?
Right. So what I think social media is great at is as a visibility tool. So People Power Brum, the movement which I was involved in, that social media, Facebook in particular, because none of us could really do Instagram.
Well, the Taylor Lawrence has this new piece on how young people are increasingly using Instagram to be talking about politics, and it's becoming a leading platform in the US amongst the iGen, which I find absolutely fascinating.
That is fascinating. I'm not sure I can really speak to that because I just do Twitter, which is like, that's been political forever, right? It's just this angry Twitter sphere.
Or awesome sometimes.
Oh yeah,
it can be fantastic.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. As a sort of, we'll leave that. That's a whole episode in itself.
And it has been removed, and all sorts of things are coming out of Twitter, both the best and the worst.
Yeah. But when it comes to mobilising and actually making social change, my view on it, our view on it when we were working with People Power Brum is it's fantastic for visibility, but really I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about where the limitations of social media are, and I think if it just stays online, stays in social media, you can get a lot of energy which ultimately can dissipate without really achieving much. And so what we always did was use social media to get people aware of our work and get people into a room. And when people are in a room and talking, that's when it really starts.
The magic happens.
The magic happens.
I like to say that unless you're a Bush, a Clinton, or a Trudeau, you're probably not born a politician. People become politically engaged kind of gradually throughout their lives. To some people, it's going to just lead to better citizenry because you will have enough information to decide who you want to vote for. But for some people, it's going to become a career. And I know in People Power Brum, you guys were experimenting with engaging people who wouldn't otherwise be your typical candidates to actually join the ranks of either as independent candidates or parties. And, get involved, not just be a loudmouth on Facebook. So I was wondering, in your experience, both as a grassroots activist, as somebody researching technology, how is the route towards or between I'm a private citizen, I'm at a university or just starting my job or, whatever stage I'm in my life, to, I've become politically engaged. How is that changing? How is that route changing?
Yeah, okay. I think coming back to the first thing you said, it would be nice to think that most people get slowly involved with politics over their life as they flourish as a member of society, and that's not happening at all. I think because of the Trumps and the Trudeaus and the Clintons, I think establishment politics, if we're happy with that phrase, has become this quite arcane and alien world, which, sure, some people either are born with kind of an affinity to that and gravitate to it,
or right last name,
or the right last name, exactly, or maybe they are born as normal people just like the rest of us, and then they get forced into this strange sort of career politician archetype that we're kind of familiar with, but can't really relate to. I think for
and you kind of end up with the politicians who, just to use the old example, who haven't bought a bottle of milk in 25 years.
Absolutely.
And then they go and make decisions about your life.
Absolutely. So it's a completely alien world and a strange thing. And for the remaining, I hesitate to use the term 99% because that's so loaded, but for the majority of
everybody
people...
else, how do you get involved?
Yeah, exactly. And there's a very, very damaging effect because these career politicians kind of fill a lot of people with disgust. And then people who maybe would, become active, I would say political citizens, just turn away from it in disgust. So I think what we have is people who just turn away from all of politics and just think none of that's for me. So yeah, in People Power Brum, we weren't trying to get these ordinary people, whoever they were, to join the ranks of the career politicians. Our philosophy was more that these ranks of career politicians are getting it all wrong, and we want to elevate these ordinary people to be exactly as they are, but with some more power. And through this process, and you're exactly right, we wanted them to stand as independent candidates, because one of the other things that we feel is really failing, one of the big institutions that we think is failing, is the party political system. So
which no longer really describes the dichotomies that we actually live, right? Which would be urban versus the countryside, or globalized versus a more local creed. So left and right no longer really says anything about these fault lines.
I would say that's true. I'd say there's a number of reasons why they're failing. The dichotomies are all shifting, and no one really understands that, and that's difficult. Where we were coming from is that even trying to make it a binary is something that's not working.
Right.
I think there are so many issues which are much better solved by trying to be deliberative and compromising, and working towards a solution which everyone's happy with. And we've locked ourselves into this sort of
either or,
red team, blue team slanging match, which is...
And you're both you're wearing both red and blue.
I
noticed.
I am. That was not a deliberate thing, but yeah. And we talk a lot about the hyper-partisan atmosphere
Okay.
and how difficult this is, and it's especially bad on Twitter, right? So so people being super polarized, but actually I think this really isn't helped by this notion that the very first thing we do, okay, so we want to solve a political issue.
Yeah.
What's the first thing we do? We divide into two teams which hate each other, and then the whole debate can just be done on this two-way shouting match, and that's
somehow it's not
unnecessary.
leading anywhere, and everybody's so surprised, right?
Exactly. So if you're running a private company and you want to make a good strategic decision for the future, what do? You sit around and have a measured discussion and get everyone's views.
Sure.
You
The
don't.
buy-in from the stakeholders.
Sure. Or at least, sharing everyone's opinions and then, iterating your way towards something which is good. What you don't do is, divide into two opposite teams.
One of your teams is going to win, and the other one will have to just live with this decision for 4 years.
Exactly. And
do a good job meanwhile, which is impossible.
Exactly. And you see how many rhetorical points you can score,
Sure.
and then at the end you do what the majority party just wanted to do all along. So this was our vision in People Power Brum, that actually this political party setup, which was big in the 20th century, is not fit for purpose.
Sure.
And the way we can get beyond that really is to get people, ideally not political type people, just
Citizens with ideas.
citizens with ideas, fantastic. And put them into, we were operating at the local government level, so this is Birmingham City Council, and put them in there and
Give them mic.
and just let them do their thing. And they
Right.
don't need to be in these crazy sort of colour-coded blocks. They can just exchange ideas like grown-ups and get stuff done. This was actually done in a small town in Somerset, which is called Froome. And they've been doing this successfully now since 2011 when they started.
Wow.
And they still hold every seat on the town council. And it just shows that it can be done.
Wow. So obviously we're hearing about all these amazing projects and people like yourself, activists, doing fantastic work in reinventing politics for the 21st century. What would happen if you guys were not working on this? Where are things going without intervention, and where do you see the areas where intervention is the most urgent?
Sure, okay. It's a really dangerous time. I think all of us are really aware of this.
Sure.
And I'm an optimist, and I'm giving you, some of my hopes, I think, for where we can take this. But yeah, the whole situation's incredibly dangerous.
Right.
I think what we're seeing is the collapse of a load of trusted institutions. I think that most of the political establishment, like the political parties, they're sort of collapsing, or that system is collapsing in my eyes. We've also got journalism is completely collapsing, and where do we go from here?
Because knowing what the truth is or what the facts are would be kind of indispensable in making a political choice, deciding which side I want to be on or what group or cause I want to choose.
Absolutely.
How do you do that today?
You need a basic level of facts, and I don't have an answer for
Sure.
the journalism question. And yeah, I'm putting forward what I think the answers are, but it could go in a number of directions, and
Right.
I think the most present one in Europe and North America is that people react to all this uncertainty with a lot of fear, and then rather than the decentralized sort of empowerment kind of thing, which I'm really into, we just get people offering, an appearance of strength and normality, and that I think is how we get populism and these sorts of regressive ideas that we're seeing gaining a lot of popularity. So interventions wise, I think there's a few small things you can do, but the counter in this sort of really difficult situation of all the certainties crumbling around us, and we don't really know how to solve anything. Also, we're killing the planet, and we've got to do something about that.
Doesn't help.
And all I can say is I think going into sort of community organising and this mode of working together and actually rediscovering the way to be harmonious and constructive with each other is maybe our best shot at just nudging humanity away from the sort of fear.
To succumbing to some kind of authoritarian nightmare, right?
Yeah. So that's my optimistic
if you
spin
meet a
on
16-year-old today from anywhere in the UK who doesn't have personal experiences in authoritarianism, he or she won't remember the Cold War, or will think that what's going on in North Korea is very exotic and very far away.
Sure.
And will think that Donald Trump was elected by a bunch of crazy adults, and adults are crazy anyway, so he or she has nothing to do with that. But they also can't really see, maybe not in the United Kingdom, political role models of their age. Sure. So what do? So I'm sitting at home in my bedroom, I'm 16, I have the internet, I have a phone. What's the first step? What should I do?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing about this is they don't really need telling what to do. If there's anyone which really gets it at the moment, I think it's the sort of...
We should ask them.
Yeah, it's the under 25s.
Email us.
The Generation Y or have you. There's data which shows that they're the ones who really understand this. So they get a lot of criticism for not engaging with politics, but this is the old politics, and sure, they don't really see the point. But
and then you see what's going on Instagram, that they are engaging with politics, just not in front of the eyes of the grown-ups, because why would you do that, right?
Not just in these online spaces, and sure, they're using them, and they're better at this than anyone who's older than them, obviously. But
are they doing IRL things as well?
Absolutely, IRL things. Yeah, they're. I mean, the RSA who I work for at the moment, they've just put out a study that 68% of young people are already in direct social action. Wow. So
that's across the United Kingdom.
That's United Kingdom young that's people. Amazing. Yeah, I think under 25. So I'm not sure, but yeah, 68%.
So there is hope then.
Yeah, I think so, and I think these young people, it is a hope, but I think that they're understanding these new dynamics, the new power dynamics, which is don't wait for permission, don't try and get your politicians in so they can do the thing that you want in 4 years' time. Just start a community enterprise, start a social enterprise, and just do that thing, and that's what they're doing.
Use your power as a group.
Yeah.
I think that's a very optimistic summary that everybody can really place our trusts in. What is the next step for yourself, and what is the next challenge that you will be tackling?
Sure. So the next step, I'm not completely sure on an individual level. People Power Brum belongs in Birmingham, and they're figuring out what their next step is, and I'm very supportive of them. One of the things which does tie into a lot of what we've been talking about, I think, is building a sense of place and community, and it's something which is difficult to capture online, but the geographical proximity, neighbourhoods and communities can be political spaces and can be really amazing spaces for building. There's also a thing about towns outside of London just feeling completely neglected because with the national politics, there is such a focus on London. Yeah. So Birmingham is going to do Birmingham, but now I'm in London.
Sure.
And so
watch out, London, right?
Watch out, London. And I think I'm going to gravitate towards, when I've got a place to live, gravitate towards neighbourhood spaces, community enterprises, and what can we build? And that sort of encapsulates what I'm working towards, really building something which is bottom up
and community based. So online, offline, mutually helping and facilitating the work of the other.
Absolutely, because it's not an either or. I think online are some really, really powerful tools, and you're going to do the best stuff if you can bring them together. So I really don't see it as an either or.
Well, I can't wait to join the movement at some point, and I know that London sorely needs this type of project, and it's also a really good area for experimentation. So you can try different things in different communities because there are so many, and then decide which one you want to export to what part of the country. So I definitely think that this is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.